Greg. You really created something here, and we all ought to take a bow to you for what you've done and created. My words tonight are from the heart. I'm indeed honored to be here tonight to honor the memory of a very distinguished American, a man whose work will live long in our history. Robert Jackson is remembered today as a Supreme Court justice and the father of the Nuremberg trials. Yet the road he took to becoming one of the most influential men in America and international law was not a traditional one. In many ways, Jackson is the embodiment of the American dream. As you know, he is educated right here in this area, and with only a high school education plus some study at Albany Law School, he entered the legal profession, apprenticing under local lawyers, where he tried cases in bars and town halls. It was still acceptable at that time to learn law this way. But when Jackson was appointed to the Supreme Court, he was the only justice at that time who had not graduated from law school or even college. Instead, he spent 2 decades practicing law locally in Western New York before moving to Washington, D.C., when Franklin Roosevelt was elected president. Jackson's rise from a local country lawyer to the top of his field was based on merit, not knowing the right people, not by having his ticket punched at the right times in his career. Robert Jackson was his own person. I knew this firsthand. Jackson's closing statement was delivered on July 26, 1946. I was asked to prepare a small section of it dealing with the German military. As it turned out, I stayed up all night during doing this, and I was very proud of what I had produced. The day after my all-night stint, I rushed to the press room to see whether any of my words had been used in the final document. When I saw the closing statement in final form, on close examination, I found that none of my words were used, although perhaps in 1 or 2 instances, my ideas were used in the final draft. In checking around with others after this episode, I found that Jackson did not believe in ghosts. If he were to speak, the words must be his own and not those of another. And I would note in passing that his speeches were indeed distinctively memorable and that they contained phrases which I believe will live forever. Robert Jackson, I believe, always liked Rudyard Kipling. And I think that Kipling's maxim, quote, "He travels fastest who travels alone," end quote, was his guiding light. Robert Jackson's work is history. Its inheritance is with us today in many spheres of international life. Universal Declaration on Human Rights is with us in inheritance at Nuremberg, as are the Genocide Convention, Torture Convention, the European Convention on Human Rights. They are part of this world in which we live, and part of inheritance from Jackson. But there's one blot on Jackson's memory which needs attention in this country. At Nuremberg, Jackson said, quote, "As we pass a poisoned chalice to the lips of these defendants, we pass it to our lips as well," end quote. This meant that those nations who brought the Nuremberg proceedings and adopted the Nuremberg principles were to abide by these principles themselves. This has been the case with the British and French, but not with the United States. I think that nations of the world should, by treaty, renounce aggression through a non-aggression pact. I have hopes that if aggression is precisely defined in such a pact, that the signatories would feel it in their interest to abide by it. To sum up, we now have war crimes courts in operation, deriving from Jackson, covering the former Yugoslavia, Rwanda, Iraq, and Sierra Leone, as well as the International Criminal Court at Hague, enforcing the principles Jackson enumerated at Nuremberg. We also have the prospect of other trials in the future, such as that projected for Cambodia. Judging based on what has occurred to date, it is a fair statement that Jackson's impact will grow significantly in the future, and the world will be better for it. Jackson summarized what he did at Nuremberg in a few words, quote, "This is the first case I have ever tried where I had to persuade others that a court should be established, help negotiate its establishment, and when that was done, not only to prepare my case, but to find a courtroom in which to try it," end of quote. In a nutshell, this summarizes what Jackson accomplished at Nuremberg. And when all is said and done, Nuremberg was the most important trial in history. Jackson's qualities of vision, fairness, courage were unique, and in fact, Nuremberg would never become a reality without the thrust they gave him to pursue a better world. We owe him and Warren County a deep debt of gratitude for all he did in pursuit of a better world, where law and justice would be the order of the day. May we long remember Robert Jackson and his magnificent achievements. Thank you.